It is so good to hear from Jamie, to know her heart, to know her passion, but also to hear the words that she has for us today that I know are inspired by God for us to hear. I love what she said. Each of us have the challenge to understand the difference between the wise people and the some people. And we have to be careful who we are tuning into to listen to for help, perspective, and guidance. And so I hope that challenge has helped you take some steps forward. Now, this is the moment where I would be introducing our second speaker who was slotted for the weekend, and his name is Landry Zehender. However, unfortunately, Landry had a recent family member pass away this weekend, somebody who's close to him, and our heart goes out to him. So he is spending some intentional time with his family as he should be. So I think it's an opportunity for us as a church to not only be lifting him and his family up in our prayers, but also to just send our condolences. If you know Landry, if you've checked your students in, as he's the director of CedarCreek students, if you have just taken the opportunity to serve in students, then you may just want to send him a note of encouragement, condolence, and love and prayer this week. Thanks for helping us with that. So what does that mean for you? That means for the next 9 minutes, you're stuck with me. So we're going to have some fun together. I want to start off with a question. How many of you remember the first time that someone asked you to be their best friend? Does it take you back? I know for me, that was on the elementary school playground. I think I was about 5, maybe 6 or 7 years old. And as I stepped out on the playground, you're trying to make friends. You're trying to find somebody that you can hang out with. And I'll never forget when my friend Chase showed up on that day on the playground, came up to me and asked me the question, "Would you be my best friend?" And I was so excited. I mean, pumped. Seriously, if Amazon Prime would have existed at that point in time, I would have one-clicked bought us some of those friendship bracelets that said best friend, so that the whole playground would know that we were, in fact, best friends. I was excited, to say the least. But I have to tell you, my excitement was a little bit short-lived, because I looked over, and my new best friend Chase was over by the monkey bars, hanging out with who I'll call an imposter. I don't know what they were doing, but they were talking, and I thought, I got to have my best friend's back. So I head that way. I enter into the conversation, and this is what I heard. Chase was asking this guy to be his best friend. And I'm like, Chase, do you not understand the definition of best? And as any 6-year-old elementary student would respond, he looked back at me and he said, "Chris, don't worry. You're my bestest friend." I got to tell you, that wasn't really that reassuring in that moment. I'm not sure I was buying it. But here's the interesting thing. 10 years, 20 years, 30, 50 years later, we are experiencing the same tension in our lives. Let me prove it to you. At the click of a finger, we are connected to potentially over 1,000 people who claim to be our friends. But maybe you feel isolated and more alone than you ever have before. Each of us are searching for someone to call a true friend. So let's talk about true friendship. What does that look like? What are some of the characteristics of it? And if you want to write this down, this helps guide our conversation today. I believe one of the true core competencies of true friendship is this. True friendship is built on transparency, not flattery. Listen to that. True friendship is built on transparency, not flattery. We're going to look at a 2-sentence passage of Scripture found in the book of Proverbs that helps us understand what true friendship can look like. So we're going to read from Proverbs 27, verses 5 and 6. And it reads this way: an open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. Now, if you were to read that passage of Scripture, you may start to feel the tension in that opening line. And let's step into that. When's the last time that you were on the receiving end of open rebuke from somebody else? Let me explain what I mean by rebuke. This is the evaluation with the boss, the counsel from somebody, speaking into your life and pointing out characteristics that you have that they see potentially could cause harm. Open rebuke. The spouse that looks at you and calls out this that's going on in your life that potentially is unhealthy. How did that make you feel? Maybe you tensed up a little bit right now. I think we have some default responses to open rebuke when it comes our way. Here's the first one. We have a tendency to deflect it. What does that mean? We blame what is being rebuked against us on other people. Maybe it's this conversation. Honey, I would have been home on time, but my boss just keeps giving me more and more to do. Deflect. Or maybe this one will sit a little closer to home in our relationships when we say something like this: if they would just change this, then maybe I would entertain the idea of restoration. Deflect. What's our other default response? Sometimes we pull out the boxing gloves and we get defensive. And when we get defensive, what we're communicating to the person providing that counsel or open rebuke to us is this: you don't think I'm good enough, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And potentially, our defensive posture keeps us from hearing something that could help us grow. Why? Because true friendships are built on transparency, not flattery. It's difficult to receive an open rebuke, but it's equally as difficult sometimes to give an open rebuke, because you're going to be given opportunities to do just that. So how do we give an open rebuke? Well, in my notes, I wrote it this way: to rebuke requires not hiding the truth. If you look at verse 5, it says, an open rebuke is better than hidden love. So if we're going to enter into a conversation with an open rebuke, we cannot hide the truth. Otherwise, we get the temptation to do this. We become the person that in a relationship just says what we think the other person wants to hear. Why do we do that? Well, maybe we think we have something to gain from that relationship, and we certainly don't want to risk severing that opportunity. Or we're afraid of conflict. We avoid it. We run away from it. And as a result, we become a flatterer. And true friendship is not built on flattery. It's built on transparency. So what does it mean to be a friend that's transparent? You see, I think that sincere friends use transparency to reveal hidden wounds. We see this in verse 6. It says, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. When we enter into a friendship with transparency, all of a sudden, something happens. We have the ability to reveal these hidden wounds. Let me explain it this way. You ever had a cut on your skin, kind of that flesh wound? A little Neosporin, we throw a Band-Aid on it, and magically, within a couple days, it scabs over and it heals up. We tell our toddlers, it's going to be okay. We kiss it, and it magically heals itself. Those surface wounds are pretty easy to heal at times. But a wound that's deep inside, man, that can take its toll. So, for each of us, if we're going to be a sincere friend, it requires transparency. And this is what I love. For those of you who are in the medical field, and some of us who are now entering into that, or you go to a doctor's office, you see the magic of digital x-rays. Well, before that, what did we have? We had translucent pieces of paper that had your skeleton printed on it. But if you took that transparency in a dim room or on a dark surface, it's hard to see what's really going on inside. But what happens when you pin it up on a source of light? All of a sudden, the hidden wounds deep inside become revealed. Much easier to see, and then we can truly begin the healing process. True friendships are built on transparency, not flattery. So, what do we do with this? One, I think it's important that a true friend also has a source of light that guides their life. They're not just telling you what they think you want to hear. They're not telling you what their opinion is. They're using scripture. They're using wise words to help guide the conversation with you in their transparency. And for each of us, this is what I think this means. We have to decide what kind of friend we want to be. Tim Keller, an author, a pastor, a speaker, he wrote a summary of Proverbs 27 with this single phrase that I want you to listen to. It says this: if you are too afraid to say what needs to be said, then you're not a friend, but an enemy to your friend's soul. True friendships, they're built on transparency, not flattery. 2 questions I want to leave you with. What kind of friend do you want to be? And what kind of friends are you inviting to speak into your life? The way that you answer those 2 questions will dictate how fast you grow or how slow you fall. Thanks so much for listening today.